Hello and welcome to Brain Upgrade. My name is Rajesh and I'm your host today. Now let us look at creating a Kubernetes cluster using kubeadm. In this case, what we will do is on our local host. So this is our local host. You can also say host OS. So this is our host OS. And on this host OS, so using vagrant and VirtualBox, we'll create two virtual machines. One virtual machine is master, and second one is worker node 1. And these two machines will be created using bento ubuntu have the vagrant image, vagrant box. Steps to carry out or creation of the master and node 1 are specified here. The link to this document is also given in the description box. Prerequisite is to have VirtualBox and vagrant installed. If it is not installed in your system, please go ahead and install it. So once both are ready, then you can come to this page and you can directly start executing these steps. Go to temp kubeadm. If you haven't created the directory, then you can create this directory. Okay, I have created this directory, so I'll get into this directory. Right now, nothing is there as part of this directory. So I'll copy these two files, vagrant definition and shell script that has got initial networking setup and also few OS commands, Ubuntu OS commands to download appropriate Kubeadm packages. Let me show both of these files to you. So here, if you look at the vagrant file definition, here I have specified number of worker node as 1, and for the master node, you can see provider is VirtualBox, memory is 2 gig, and number of CPUs are 2. Similarly, for the node 1, memory is 2 gigabyte and 1 core CPU, and node is also created using VirtualBox. Now for both of these nodes, you can see I'm using this common.sh to do the initial setup. What this initial setup consists is, it has got few OS package management command like updating the packages and then adding the appropriate repos and then downloading the packages like container runtime engine and also kubelet, kubectl and kubeadm. The version is 125. So now let us follow the steps here. Okay, so now since we have got the vagrant file and shell script as well, we can directly up the vagrant boxes. So this command will use the vagrant file definition file and create two virtual machines, two Ubuntu virtual machines, master and node 1. So right now it is launching master and it will use the common shell script to do the initial networking setup, at the same time download appropriate Kubeadm packages. So it may take a couple of minutes or so. So I'll pause, and once it is done, then I will resume. So Vagrant provisioning is done. Let us check the status. And here you can see both of these virtual machines are on. The first virtual machine is master node for us, and the second one is the worker node. So now let's get into the master node using vagrant shs command. So now we are into the master node. Now once we are into the master node, now we can initialize Kubeadm cluster using this kubeadm init command. This requires sudo, so let us do sudo kubeadm init. This is the master node IP, and the pod network CIDR, pod IP range. So this will pull all the libraries, appropriate libraries. Okay, so now both virtual machines should be up. We can check the status. Yeah, so both the virtual machines are up. We'll now log in into the master virtual machine, or the virtual machine where we will install the master components. So we are into master node now. Now we can initialize kubeadm. So we should start with sudo. So it will pull the config images, or the images that are required to run the cluster component, master component. It may take 3 to 5 minutes. So I'll pause. So kubeadm setup is done on the master. Now let us verify it by creating .kube directory and copying the config file, kube config file, so that we can write kubectl commands. Let us also set the alias. Now we can say get nodes. Control plane is now ready. So check what pods are running. All pods are running. We can create. We can run one pod. Say nginx pod with the nginx, and let us check. Okay, it is yet to be scheduled. Now we'll check why it is not scheduled. It says untolerant. So if you want to use this as a single node cluster, then we can remove this then from the master, or we can add the second node to this kubeadm cluster. And we know that we have created second virtual machine, and we'll treat that second virtual machine the second node of our Kubeadm Kubernetes cluster. So let us get into the second node. Yes, so now we are inside the second node. So now, in order to have this node joining the cluster, we need to send the join command, and then wait to get that token is to run this command, print join command. Yep. So now we'll run this command on node 1 using sudo. Okay, the moment this command is run successfully, we can expect this node becoming part of Kubeadm cluster. multi-node cluster, one master and one worker node. Okay, second node joined, node 1 joined. Right now it's not in ready state. Okay, now it's in ready state. Let us check the pod that we created. Now it is scheduled on the node 1 and container is getting created. Okay, it may take a minute or so in the beginning to launch this particular pod. We can also check the description. Okay, it's still pulling the image. Fantastic. So now our Nginx app is running on this. Okay, so now we can install the ingress. Before we install the ingress controller, let us install the CNI plugin for this cluster. We will use Calico CNI router. Okay, it is done. Now let us wait for Calico adapter to be fully in running state. Ports now. Okay, all ports in running state. Now we can take the next step. Now we will launch the ingress controller. So this is the ingress controller. Remember, you need to launch this ingress controller. You need to run this command on master node. Okay, ingress controller is installed. Okay, it's creating pod. Okay, let's wait for a minute or so. Okay, so while pod gets created, we will look at the next step. Okay, in order for routing all the requests from background box to Kubernetes ingress controller, we need to also install the Nginx and route the request to Kubernetes master node and the ingress controller port. So let us install Nginx and let us also create this config file. So in a minute this should get done. Yeah, so now we can create this config file, and in this config file what we have specified is any request coming to this master node. Here we'll write the master node. This is the master node IP, and this should be the ingress controller port. Let's find out the ingress controller port. So this is the port. So any request coming to master node on this port, request will be routed to this ingress controller, and this is the config for that. So this Nginx server will route all the requests to ingress controller running on this master node, on this node port, and the request coming for any subdomain of this TLC, top level domain, TLD. So once we create this config file, Then let us activate this config file by running this command and restarting nginx server. Okay, so now if we call this URL, so right now it says not found, though requests are routed to ingress controller, there is no app having this URL as part of the Kubernetes cluster, hence we see 404 not found. So now what we'll do is we will deploy one sample app, say hello app, using this command. So here I'm using this image to deploy the app, and then I will expose this app as a service using name hello. And once this deployment is exposed as service, then let me create the ingress for this app, and this is the URL that I have specified, hello brainupgrade.in. The moment ingress is created, this address will be populated by ingress controller. So while ingress controller may take some time to update this address, but I believe that request routing can be tested now. So now let us do the curl and this URL. Okay, yes, yet to be routed. Let's wait. Yes, fantastic. So now request is routed. Now our app is responding to this request call. So this request is from background box master node, coming from master node, and using nginx configuration we are routing this request to Kubernetes ingress controller, which is running as part of the Kubeadm cluster. So now if you want to access this URL outside the background box, then you can add this background master node IP and the URL in your etc host file on your host computer. The moment you do it, then you can browse this particular URL. Let me check if I have done it outside the background box. So if I say etc host, so let me update this. Perfect. Now if I say curl, it should work. It should respond. IP should be this. Now it should respond. Yep, fantastic. Now it's responding. So this is how we can set up Kubeadm cluster using background and VirtualBox on your laptop. It's a multi-node cluster.